Let's take you live to Canberra now and the Finance Minister, Mathias Cormann.
Since then, he's disappeared. He's nowhere to be seen. I mean, this is the carbon tax, which Labor during the election campaign said it had already abolished. Kevin Rudd and Labor removed the carbon tax, is what Labor said. Now Bill Shorten wants to keep it. People across Australia deserve an explanation from Bill Shorten as to why Labor is going back on its word during the campaign, why Labor wants to hurt families by keeping electricity prices high, and why Labor wants to hurt the economy by keeping electricity prices high. Where is Bill Shorten? Bill Shorten should come out and provide an explanation to the Australian people as to why he's not fulfilling the commitment they made during the election campaign to terminate the carbon tax. Happy to take some questions.
At the press conference, he explained himself at the press conference.
No fine print in this brochure. Carbon tax abolished. Kevin Rudd and Labor removed the carbon tax, and on the back, Kevin Rudd and Labor have removed the carbon tax, saving the average family $380, not even meant to be a year. No detail, nothing. Now, whether it is floating, whether it is fixed, it is still a tax that continues to go up and up and up, and which continues to hurt families and which continues to hurt the economy. And most important of all, the Australian people passed judgment on what they thought of Labor's carbon tax. The Australian people want Labor's carbon tax gone. Bill Shorten should respect the will of the Australian people.
On the mining tax repeal, do you intend to introduce that legislation in the first week of Parliament, or is there some delay in that?
We have been on the record for a very long time. We'll scrap Labor's failed mining tax, and we'll scrap most of the unfunded measures that Labor has attached to their failed mining tax, and of course that is one of the first pieces of legislation.
In the first week?
Well, that is one of the first pieces of legislation that we'll be introducing into the Parliament, and you can be very safe in the assumption that it'll be in the first week.
Just on that, do you accept the argument that small business would suffer under the legislation you'd put through?
Labor made a whole series of promises, unfunded promises, which they attached to their failed mining tax. In 2 elections now, the coalition has been explicit that we would scrap the mining tax, which is bad for the economy, bad for jobs, and that we would scrap the unfunded promises that Labor attached to their mining tax. And of course, the budget that we inherited from Labor is a mess. This is a particular measure that will help us repair the budget. This will help improve the budget bottom line to the tune of $13.4 billion. All we're doing here is implementing the commitments that we took openly and transparently to the last election. And by the way, if Labor had been re-elected at the last election, whatever they said before the election, they would have had to scrap many of these measures. Whatever Labor said before the election, past history showed us that always changed after the election. We were open and transparent before the election about what our intentions were in relation to the mining tax and what our intentions were in relation to the unfunded promises that Labor had recklessly and irresponsibly attached to that mining tax.
Given you say that you are a pro-small business government, why not have a look at loss carryback again and the threshold for the small business instant asset write-off? They say it will cost you about $3.8 billion to keep those 2 provisions over the forward estimates, and there's a long-term benefit. Why not reconsider those measures? There
are many meritorious causes that governments can pursue, but when they're not funded, they're not funded. Labor attached all sorts of promises to the mining tax, recklessly and irresponsibly, without providing funding for them. Their mining tax has been a monumental failure. Their mining tax is having a bad impact on economic growth, which hurts small business. The best thing that we can do for small business is implement our agenda for stronger growth and more jobs. That will help small business in a sustainable way.
30,000 jobs in the car industry in Victoria a meritorious cause, Senator Cormann?
Well, I mean, again, in the lead up to the last election, we were very clear as to what our approach would be in relation to government support to the car industry. We flagged that we would be conducting a Productivity Commission inquiry, which is now underway. The terms of reference out there. We are going through a proper, orderly, methodical process. The government will make decisions in the right way at the right time, consistent with what we said before the election we would do.
There's a lot of coalition debate about the takeover bid for GrainCorp. Do you have any concerns about foreign ownership of GrainCorp?
I mean, this is a matter for the Treasurer to decide. I'm just not going to add to the public commentary in relation to this.
You are the Minister in Cabinet in charge of parliamentary entitlements. Couldn't you save a lot of money by actually having a review of parliamentary entitlements? And if you haven't called a review, why not, given the public outcry as to some of these claims?
Well, I mean, clearly, politicians as part of their job, in particular, federal politicians as part of their job, all travel should be within entitlement. And of course, whenever there are issues that emerge, people should correct those issues at the earliest opportunity, which is what happens. If there are sensible suggestions on how the system can be improved, we'll of course consider them.
Have you spoken to Don Randall about the accusations of a Liberal at him regarding this issue?
I have not had a conversation with Don Randall.
Your sensible suggestions. And Don Randall's been raised here. He has paid back five grand or so. But what about the $5,000 that taxpayers would charge for the trip to Melbourne, where he went to the football? Now, if that's within entitlement, why should it be entitlement for his wife to go there and then go back?
I'm not going to get into specifics about individual circumstances. You asked me a question up front about the system as a whole. The system is that as part of doing our job as members of Parliament, we have to travel. All claims should be made within the rules, of course, and if there are issues that emerge, they've got to be dealt with, and that's what's happened.
The argument is that it is within the rules, but why is it in the
Well, I mean,
rules?
I think I've answered your question.
Do you think there's any scope in the current rules and the current system to prevent money being wasted so that taxpayer funds can be saved?
Well, as I've just said, claims have got to be made within the rules, and if there are sensible suggestions along the way on how the system can be improved that actually make the system better, then of course we'd consider them. One more question.
Is there a need for an inquiry to bring those suggestions forward in the same way as you're doing for the car industry?
Well, look, these are issues that are well and truly beyond my area of responsibility. The minister that is directly responsible for this, directly responsible for this is Senator Robinson.
You're the Minister in Cabinet responsible for
Indeed.
it. Is there a need for an inquiry?
And I've provided my answer to that.
Is the answer no?
Well, the answer is that politicians, as part of their job, have to travel. The rules are well understood. There have been a number. There have been a number of inquiries in the past. We will continue to consider these issues, and we'll deal with them in an orderly and methodical fashion. Now, I promise one question. I promise one question.
Being a native WA and the prospect of a by-election for the Senate there, do you think it's inevitable, and B, are you confident the Liberals will hold their 3 Senate spots if there is an election?
Well, I mean, look, what happened in Western Australia is unfortunate. Obviously, there are some processes underway now that should be allowed to take their course. If there is another election in Western Australia, it will be another opportunity for the people of Western Australia to send a strong and clear message to Bill Shorten that they want the carbon tax gone. It will be another opportunity to have a referendum on the carbon tax, which is hurting families and hurting the economy. I've got to go to Cabinet. Thank you.
Senator Mathias Cormann there, the Finance Minister, speaking in Canberra. We're going to go to our political editor David Spears very shortly for more analysis. Let's take a brief look at the weather.